Welcome to the Advertising Forum. This is episode 1 of our 2025 Identity Series, sponsored by IntentIQ.
Today we have Fabrice Beer-Gabel, the Vice President, Strategy and Partnerships from IntentIQ, and Art Binder, the Director, Programmatic at Assembly Global. Both Art and Fabrice will be joining us on episodes 1 and 2 of the series. Art, Fabrice, welcome to the Advertising Forum.
Thank you, ATG.
I'm excited to have you both here. Looking forward to hearing different perspectives as it relates to identity. Art, this one's for you. Can you share with us some of your observations on the changing landscape, specifically how it relates to identity? Like, how has identity become so important to you in recent times?
Yeah, great question. When we look at identity in the digital space, specifically talking to the programmatic space, we're looking to understand precision in targeting. We're trying to reach a very precise audience, and that's what our clients are looking for. As we talk about these different questions around identity, I think a common way to look at this is accuracy versus precision. Right? And accuracy kind of is the historical methodology by which media has been reached. It just looks at all the different sort of cohorts within a target audience, but precision looks at how closely we can get from an identity standpoint to the specific type of persona or person that we're trying to reach for a given client. Historically, up until the last few years, digital media has been moving closer and closer with precision. The past few years, we've taken some steps back for various different reasons. It would take more time than we have to go through all the reasons why precision has gone a few steps back. But identity remains critical. And to the effectiveness of digital marketing, we need to continue to work with companies like IntentIQ to find solutions.
Art, great insights. Thank you for that. Fabrice, what's your perspective on what Art just had to say?
Yeah, absolutely. The precision versus accuracy, or the balancing act between those two, is essential. And now more than ever, there are about 200 million users out there just in the US alone that are cookieless. Think about 150 million iPhone users, 72 million desktop users on Safari, Firefox, Edge. All of that is cookieless, which means it's a big revenue loss for publishers and a shrinkage of audience for advertisers who have been using, audience data to target and preserve addressability. So that's a big topic to address. And that's why identity resolution is now more than ever very important.
How is it different when it relates to the iOS market? So cookieless is one thing, various identity solutions in the market is another. But maybe I'll start again with Art. Art, what's your approach to identity? And why is it so hard to reach these audiences you want to reach?
We look at, as with most campaign strategy efforts, you start with looking at your total addressable, market, right? Your TAM. For example, at this point, mobile users are a significant portion of where we want to reach our consumers. Looking at some recent research across the board, mobile users are spending approximately 4+ hours a day on their mobile. And they're reaching for those phones over 100 times throughout the day. And so when we look at how we're reaching people across mobile, it is a very critical component that we need to understand. And Apple iOS makes up, it keeps flipping back and forth. But let's say, for the sake of argument, it's a 50-50 split between Android and iOS users. And so the current area that we lack visibility into, and these are changes that Apple put into play 2 or 3 years ago, of removing those identifiers or making them dynamic rather than static, has created a large gap in how we reach these consumers.
We're constantly looking for improved ROI, better CPA, increased reach. How is Assembly Global doing things differently? And how are you leveraging identity solutions to translate things into tangible performance, gains for your clients?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer right off the bat, because again, the traditional ways that we've looked at ROI, ROAS, particularly in the programmatic space, have changed. So a lot of the historical ways of looking at ROAS and MTA were cookie-based solutions, and those solutions are not available to us. And part of that question, there's that old adage of spray and pray, which you just kind of put out the media and hope that you get, you reach a good percentage of that target audience. While we're not back in those sort of dark ages, we have, and the reason for that is because we have tools and newer measurement solutions to help address that, but they have to be, there's no one single silver bullet solution. So we look at multiple solutions, and it's on the responsibility of brands and agencies to come up with, whether it's a combination of brand study, it's measurement tools that IntentIQ has on the background. It's MMMs. We're seeing more MMM utilization simply because there's so much noise and garbage. So it's using a proxy, to put it in a simple word.
So Fabrice, what are some common misconceptions around using identity solutions on the buy side? How are you addressing all those concerns at IntentIQ and just within our ecosystem?
So there are a lot of misconceptions, and
A lot.
yes, there are a lot. And beyond those, I think the focus for art and for companies like Assembly is one that relates to scale, accuracy, and interoperability. But some of the misconceptions that we find out there, first of all, identity resolution doesn't mean that it's cookieless. And today, the big gap in terms of audiences that have gone to the dark side, let's call it, in other words, that they are not lit up anymore by addressability, they are mostly cookieless or made-less. So identity resolution is not cookieless by default, which means the onus is now on the advertiser, on their agency partner, to be proactive in testing and evaluating solutions, because there are solutions out there. The other misconception that we see a lot is that alternative IDs, are not born equal. So alternative IDs is this new brand of privacy safe IDs that can solve for that gap left by those missing identifiers. But they're so different from one another, then you have to be testing a bunch of those. You can't settle for one, and you have to understand how they deliver, scale and accuracy, reach and performance, And maybe just one more misconception that I hear quite a lot is deterministic is good, probabilistic is bad. That is wrong. That's a wrong approach. You cannot go to scale with identity unless you go with probabilistic. Probabilistic can be 1% accurate or 99% accurate. That's where the difference lies. So ultimately, it's about scale, how much coverage your identity resolution covers, and how accurately it does so.
Those are some interesting points, Fabrice. So, Art, from where you're sitting at Assembly and from your experience within advertising at Assembly and throughout your career, what are different apprehensions that you've had when it comes to actual identity solutions?
There are many.
Why?
Why? Because everyone has become more savvy. And when I first started my career in programmatic, one of the pushes has been like, go into a career programmatic because nobody understands it. And it's the opportunity to move the fastest ahead. Today, we won't say how many years later, there's still a huge misunderstanding and lack of understanding on how programmatic operates. But it's getting better, and people are, both brands and marketers are becoming more savvy, and they're reading more content. But all of the information out there is kind of in the dark. And so the apprehension comes from people looking at this, and either, there's a lot of terms for it. It could be BS, it could be snake oil, it could be voodoo. And you can use a whole lot of terms now to look at a lot of the AdTech, MarTech space in that. So again, this comes back to the agency roles and responsibility to weed through the different partners and vendors. And some of them might be hard to weed through. A lot of them have a very good positioning and a pitch business role. But it's become proliferated in the industry. And, we just need to go through it and understand and vet it and then come up with those solutions.
So how do you see the role of identity evolving then over the next year, 2 years, several years? It's probably a bit hard to have foresight into several years from now. But as privacy regulations continue to tighten, as new tech emerges, there's going to be a continuous shift that takes place. Who wants to take this first?
I can just quickly, kick that off by saying I thought I had some ideas going into 2025, but a lot of those ideas have been shot. I think it's anybody's guess where the current, at least the U.S. administration, is going to take these privacy laws and rules. I think ultimately it comes down to a renegotiation between the advertiser, the consumer, and the brand to really make identity work the way it should. I'll hand it to Fabrice.
Odd, I think you're being a little modest here because I know how much you innovate and, question us and question your partner and go to the bottom of things. So, I think you have a better idea than you pretend, or you say you have, on this call here. But as far as we're concerned, I would say the main things we are seeing in terms of evolution, first of all, it's about privacy first addressability. In other words, everybody wants addressability in the ecosystem, but it's got to be privacy first. In other words, it has to meet regulation wherever it is, the strictest of all, just to get everybody comfortable. Advertisers and agencies want to onboard first-party data in a way that's safe, and they want to have as much coverage of audiences with it. And so privacy first addressability is essential. The second thing I think as we go along, in an age where everybody's focused on supply path, efficiency, it's all going to be about performance. Ultimately, if the advertiser does not see the value, the incremental value at the end of the bottom of the funnel, it's going to be a no-go. So these are the two main trends that I think are going to prevail.
Incredible. Art, Fabrice, thank you so much for being here. And thank you to our sponsors, IntentIQ, for sponsoring the Identity series. Speak to you guys soon and see you on episode 2.